Today we're talking about a lesser-known Shakespeare play that uses the fairy tale trope of sleeping with someone in the dark, so dark apparently you don't know who you're sleeping with. A very problematic problem play about a corrupt, unjust, authoritarian government and crazy moral hypocrisy. Super unrelatable to today, but let's jump into it. This is Measure for Measure. Play takes place in Vienna, where there's this duke named Vincentio who's like in charge of the entire city. He has to go on a trip, so he leaves a strict judge named Angelo in charge for him. There's this dude named Lucio who's a fantastic, someone who's extravagant, fanciful, and imaginative. He and his friends are walking down the street and having classic Shakespearean banter about religion, prostitution, and venereal disease. A woman named Mistress Overdone, who owns a brothel, comes out and kind of like admonishes them for their flippant talk and informs Lucio that his friend Claudio is about to be executed for fornication, sleeping with a woman he's not married to. Lucio's horrified and runs off to talk to Claudio. And Mistress Overdone tells everyone else, very upset, that all of the brothels are getting torn down by Angelo, because this is Angelo's crazy law. So Claudio, seen here chained up, is actually only guilty of fornication because of a technicality. His fiance's name is Juliet. Not that Juliet, different Juliet. She's pregnant, but they're not technically married, so her pregnancy has landed him in jail. And Angelo has decreed this is punishable by death. But Claudio has a sister named Isabella who is studying to be a nun. She's like, this is wrong. I'm gonna go to Angelo and I'm gonna intercede on your behalf. So Isabella meets alone with Angelo, and in a moment of totally surprising hypocrisy, he gets really attracted to her. And this guy who's supposed to be all about good morals tells her, hey, I'll spare your brother's life if you sleep with me. Understandably, she's like, hell no, I'm gonna expose you for being a big hypocrite. And he, in very familiar fashion, says, girl, ain't no one gonna believe you. I've got this reputation for being so moral. You're a woman. So Isabella goes back to Claudio and she's like, dude, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to die. And he's like, wait, if you sleep with this dude, I don't have to die, sleep with him. But not only does she not want to sleep with him because he's a horrible person, she wants to be a nun. She wants to keep her chastity intact. She feels like sleeping with him would be giving up her immortal soul. And she's like, sorry, dude, that's more important than your earthly life. Meanwhile, Vincentio, he didn't really leave the city. He has dressed himself up as a friar to spy on Angelo and see what he'll do in his absence. He befriends Isabella, seeing what Angelo is doing, and they decide to fix everything with a bed trick. Turns out Angelo has previously been engaged to this chick named Mariana. He made a legal agreement with her, but then backed out when her dowry got lost at sea. So now he's not getting any money, so he's like, nah, I don't want you. The only thing she needs to make this marriage legal is to have sex with him. So Isabella sends word to Angelo, okay, I will sleep with you for Claudio's life, but only if we do it in total darkness and total silence. And he agrees to that. So in total darkness and silence, he has sex with Mariana, shown here stretching her back, consummating their marriage and believing he's having sex with Isabel in exchange for her brother's life. But surprise, surprise, afterwards, Angelo goes back on his word. He's like, nah, change my mind, and he sends word to have Claudio's head chopped off. But Vincentio arranges to have a different prisoner's head cut off instead of Claudio's, but that prisoner is actually too drunk. Like, apparently he's too unwieldy and they can't get him down and get his head off. So they cut off the head of a pirate who had been held captive and who recently died of a fever and send that one instead. So they don't have to kill anybody. He was already dead. And apparently he looks like Claudio. Then Vincentio returns to Vienna and Mariana and Isabella publicly petition against Angelo. Angelo's like, these women are lying harpies. None of this stuff is true. But then Vincentio reveals himself and says, haha, I know the women are telling the truth. Angelo, you're gonna be executed, but first you have to finish marrying Mariana so she can get all your money when you die. Which sounds fitting and awesome to me, but Mariana actually pleads for his life. She wants to live with him and actually be married to him. Vincentio agrees, and then he reveals, oh, by the way, Claudio's still alive. Up till this point, Isabella thought her brother was dead. He brings him out and he's like, you get pardoned, you get to marry Julia. That was just a dead pirate's head, psych. And then Vincentio proposes marriage to Isabella. She does not reply. She gets no more lines in the play, and it ends. And that silence has been open to a lot of different interpretations. Reading it from a modern woman's perspective, I'm like, that's horrible. Why would Isabella marry Vincentio? She wants to be a nun. A happy ending is her getting to go be a nun. But for Shakespeare's audience, everything has to end with a woman ending up in a marriage. If it's a comedy, which this play is supposed to be. Just like fairy tales end with the wild women or the enchanted women, the women scared or alone and on quests, they end in marriage. Arguably because these are stories told by men and women need to end up in a controlled environment where they are taking their place in society where they are supposed to be, belonging to a man. Most scholars argue that Shakespeare's audience would not have been distressed by Isabella not answering the proposal. They just assume that that silence means yes, because of course she would want that. The most wealthy, important person in the story wants to marry her. She will be safe and taken care of. But I remember reading this in college and being furious. Isabella is a really cool character who is so smart and has amazing witty banter with Angelo and is so good at arguing against him. At no point does she have any feelings towards Vincentio, and repeatedly shows that she doesn't want to marry anyone. But it is important to note that the audience at the time would have seen her marrying him as her success. Angelo tried to do horrible things to her, and she ends up married to his boss. Because the whole play is about morality and justice. I forgot there's a whole subplot with Lucio, the fantastic who's friends with Claudio. He gets punished at the end with marrying a sex worker named Kate Keepdown, who he got pregnant and abandoned. And his punishment is, you gotta marry her and take care of your kid. And this play has amazing dialogue in it and some great quotable lines, like some rise by sin and some by virtue fall. Ain't that the truth? And it seems to be Shakespeare criticizing really strict morality that no one can uphold, and he's really dissing hypocrites, particularly male hypocrites, and that's awesome. He based this story on something called the story of Epita, and that story is a tragedy. Isabella's character has to sleep with Angelo and her brother gets killed anyway. He seems to be saying, but what if we made it better? Why is it called Measure for Measure? Partly because of a line in the play. An Angelo for a Claudio, death for death, haste still pays haste, and leisure answers leisure, like doth quit like, and measure still for measure. A lot of people think this is a reference to a Bible verse. Matthew 7:2, which says, for in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with a measure you use, it will be measured you. So, karma, which is a very satisfying idea. But I still wish Isabella got to be the nun she wanted to be, and that Angelo got some more of a punishment than marrying the woman he was gonna marry anyway. Like a horrible fairy tale punishment of being stripped naked and put in a barrel with nails and rolled down a hill till he's dead. I know that's extreme. I just really don't like Angelo. Check out my book, Dust Spells, a reimagining of the Grimm fairy tale, The 12 Dancing Princesses, and my podcast, Folktales and Fairy Lore. Link is in the bio.